Welcome to New Skies Podcast. This is Chris, and today I'm joined by
Joel.
That's right, episode 2. Here we go. Today's episode, my idea was take 10 random favorite songs of ours, and then we each have a minute to talk about those songs. That way, we're keeping the episode maybe under 25 minutes.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Right. So the way I did it, before we get going, I have a favorites playlist on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I have like over 10,000 songs on my phone. And I think the favorites list is now at like close to 1,000. So I just hit shuffle, and the first 10 that popped up, the list is hilariously perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I did mine. How'd you do yours?
I have an internalized list of favorite songs, and I just kind of randomly shuffled through in my head, what have I been listening to lately that's kind of outside the norm, because I've got my standard, these are the songs I listen to a lot.
Sure.
And I tried to pull out ones that recently...
California Girls by Katy Perry.
Exactly. That's my staple every morning, every night before I go to bed when I wake up. But for songs that are not Katy Perry inspired, I tried to pick songs that recently I've been really digging.
Cool.
So,
all right. So what we're gonna do is we'll trade off.
Okay.
And I got this clock here.
Yep.
So we need to ramble for another 50 seconds. What's interesting is I haven't been able to add to my favorites list because the music app I like to use has not updated, and it seems like they have no plans to update, and the favorite button has stopped working, which is really annoying.
So you can never have a new favorite song again.
That's right. So I just need to change the apps, but then I'd have to start building my favorites list again.
But really, is any new song going to top your favorites?
Well, there's just songs I haven't added yet. That's the problem.
That's true. You can never buy new music again.
That's true. No, that's not going to happen, but All right, we're closing in on the start of my minute.
Maybe editing this long, excruciating minute out.
All right, so here we go. The first song on my list is by Laputa. Their song Brand New Color. This comes from the electronic era. Around 2002, all of a sudden they released this album called Glitter, and it was like heavily electronic compared to earlier stuff. They'd always had keyboards and some loops and things, but it really ramped up. Koichi's his guitar playing on this track is really muted. He was having health issues, I guess, during the recording of this album and New Temptation, the full length that came out later that year. But what he does do on the track is really cool. And I encourage everyone to check it out. It's the B-side to the single Shinkai. I encourage everyone to check out Laputa in general. They're one of my favorite bands. And what else can I say? That's it.
All right. So then I'm just going to go ahead and go. First on my list is Innermost by Cozy. After Mouse Miser broke up, everybody kind of started doing their own projects. Klaha had his, Mana had his, Yuki went to a farm and played the didgeridoo, and then Cozy created the album Katharashisu. And that album in general is just incredible. But one of my favorite tracks from it was Innermost. It's mainly keyboard-centered. Cozy does quite a bit of guitar on this album, but I think it really takes a backseat to his keyboard and synthesizers. The other thing that I really like about this, more than things he's done past his first solo album, his vocals were on point. Throughout the entire Katarashisu album, his vocals are the main draw of this album. Every song, I feel like he's giving his best vocal performance, which, his voice kind of varies from release to release. Innermost is an example of Cozy singing with the best of his abilities, and he's good. He's very, very good.
Nice. Next up for me is Tsukini Inoru from Glay on their album Beat Out. Classic Glay album. Beat Out is one of my favorite Glay albums, tied with Heavy Gauge. Beat Out has a lot of hits on it. This was not a single as far as I'm aware. It might have been a B-side. I don't think so, though. Anyway, it's a really great song. This whole album in general is really interesting. They have some hard-hitting songs. They have some, ballads. Mickey piano at the end of the album is really, this is the most chill song. But this song is really great. It's got a good beat. It's guitar work's interesting. And it's just funny that this song pops up on this list because Glay was one of the first Japanese bands I really got into.
Right.
And it's really sad they broke up in the year 2000. I just don't like anything outside of the 90s, really.
Doesn't exist. All right. So, next song from me, Luca Turilli's solo release, Prophet of the Last Eclipse. They have a track 2, War of the Universe. This is one of the greatest examples I can think of an intro track merging perfectly with the track that comes after it. War of the Universe is, prefaced by a very synthetic, choir-driven, synthesized opener. Goes right into War of the Universe. Starts out with very, very strong French horns, full orchestra, full choir. It's just a brilliant way to start an album. The first time I listened to this CD, I never got past the second track because I just kept looping it again and again and again. And then I heard Rider of the Astral Fire, which came next. And then I would loop the first 3 tracks. And then systematically I would introduce the next track and the next track.
More and more.
Until I finally heard the full album.
Cool.
It's one of my favorite albums. It's another one which I would consider a perfect album.
Sweet. All right. Next up for me is Bucktick's Moonlight from their Koshi no Shirabe. This is not greatest hits. So that's an album where they re-recorded some singles and some deeper cuts. This song in particular is an amazing rework. It is a superior version. And it comes right after the song In Heaven. They're connected together, which these were not 2 songs that appeared on a release beforehand. So it was kind of a cool thing. Got a great guitar solo. It's just a great song. I really like this album, but if you're going to get into Bucktick and you've never heard of them, I wouldn't start with this album necessarily.
Yeah.
Maybe Darkened in Darkness, kind of weird. Hard to say. R.I.P. Atsushi. I also should have mentioned R.I.P. Aki.
Yes.
All right, what you got, Joel?
All right. So next up from me, the very first Luna Sea song I heard, Deja Vu. So Deja Vu came about when I heard the name and decided, I should give them a try. I found the PV and I was hooked. Deja Vu is, it's one of my top 5 Luna Sea songs, right up there with Rosier. There's something about the chorus of this song. It's just so infectious. It's great to sing at karaoke, and many, many people know it. So as soon as it starts up, you've got people singing along. I was a big fan of the guitar work in this song specifically.
Guitar lead during the chorus, too.
Oh, it's so good. Everything about the construction of this song was brilliant. I loved the interplay of the vocals during the verses of the track, where he starts off, like singing, and then he goes into the screaming part. They re-recorded it later on, which I still can enjoy, but there's something about the original rawness and purity of the original version of this track that I think cuts a little bit harder than any of the later re-recordings. Right. And, Ryuichi's voice improved, but I think this is best as a punk song.
Sure. All right, next up, I got Maximum the Hormone by the band Maximum the Hormone.
You're kidding.
This is where they reformed. And, they took a little break. I think the drummer had a baby and was on bed rest. And so this isn't like my favorite song by them. And I would say this song, I wouldn't even start with this band on this song. I don't even know how to describe this band. But I would say if you are going to check them out and you are familiar with the anime and manga Death Note, you should watch their PV, their music video, Zetsubo Billy. If you're not familiar with them, you should check out their music video, Koi no Mega Lover, and you'll understand how schizophrenic and insane this band is.
I don't think there is a way to understand Maximum Hormone.
All right, what you got?
There's no right way. Next is from a German power metal band, Gamma Ray, with their song Strangers in the Night, from their, I think it's 2002 album Power Plant, which is most famous for the track Armageddon and their cover of It's a Sin by the Pet Shop Boys. Strangers in the Night, not to be confused with the Frank Sinatra classic, is... I never realized how influential the melodies of this song were on my own songwriting. But going back and listening to it, I love how catchy the chorus of this track is. I encourage everybody who's a German power metal fan, if you haven't heard "Strange in the Night" by Gamma Ray, listen to this track. The cello that plays in the intro is just fantastic. The guitar work is amazing. I believe Kai Hansen, who's the composer and vocalist of this track, originally from Helloween, left the band Helloween to go to music school, came back as the guitarist and vocalist of Gamma Ray. You can really tell his chops have increased, exponentially for some of the work on this album.
Cool. Next song I got is "Truth" by Fanatic Crisis. So this is a funny one because I do not like this band, but I love this song, and it's the early version off the Shockwave '96. And this song's amazing. It's raw, it's indie, it's but so what? It like captures '90s.
Yeah.
That kind of underground Visual K sound that I love when I hear it. It's not like a song I'm gonna be like, "Hey everyone, listen to this song."
Yeah.
But I don't care. Fanatic Crisis is one of those bands that both of us are frequently confused on how they got famous, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I saw they recently played this song live, so.
And Shockwave '96 was such a confusing album in general, so it was great, but very confused. Next on my list, Bel Air by Malice Miser.
Nice.
So that was their first major release. Nobody knew what they were going to do because they'd just come off doing Voyage. They come out with Bel Air, which has weird time signatures all over the place. The intro of this song keeps switching back and forth between different time signatures, making it a very complicated piece. By all accounts, Gokdo didn't know what the song was going to be until he got it.
Really?
Yeah, he just knew, we're going to do a major release. He gets the song from Mana, and his vocals are just top notch. I love the vocal line. I love his performance. And I want to give a special mention to the drumming of this song. When you think complex beats, no Malice Miser song is as complex as this one from a drummer perspective. Well, basically from everybody's perspective.
Yeah, it's complicated.
But where it really comes together is the very finale of the song when the guitars are doing like...
Right.
Kami's drumming on this is what inspired me to become a more serious drummer. More than any other song, Gokdo's vocals on top of this when he's just holding notes, it's perfect. Watching this song live, the light show, amazing. Love this track.
Hey, you went over there, buddy.
Sorry. It's so much to say.
All right, next I got Prologue by Bulls H in '88. This, I don't know how to describe this band, but it's Junji on drums from Siam Shade, Ikuo, a session bassist who's been in many bands everyone knows, being in boys school, etc., etc. The real pull of this band's the rhythm section. No offense to the singer or guitar player, they're very good, but what they're doing is so absurd on this track and many other tracks of theirs. I encourage everyone to check it out. I don't have a whole lot to say about this band, so we're back on track.
All right. Next for me, Eyes with the song Sky. So Eyes was another Christ band. They came out with a brilliant album, Arc, which has, nothing but hits. But particularly, I liked Sky from an omnibus Christ release called Christ 1998. It's also got Days by Desire, Review for Fate by Blue. Sky has an incredible chorus, but the part that I really like is toward the end when the vocalist is layering, kind of doing this round thing going on with one of the main vocal lines, adding new parts to it. The guitar work throughout is just phenomenal. But if you're just getting into Eyes, want to check them out, I highly recommend starting with Sky, especially the Christ version.
Nice.
The album version has an intro that kind of bleeds from the track before with kind of an acoustic version of the ending, breaks into the main song. Everything about the composition just works so well. So highly recommend Eyes.
Nice. All right, next up, I've got a track by the band Next from their album Lysenka, a Space Rock Opera. I cannot read the Hangul because I don't read Korean, but I'm pretty sure this is... I can't read it. I'm not going to pretend. But that album of theirs is one of their best. this band is my favorite Korean rock band. They have, I don't know, they have a weird mix of genres on all their albums. This one is quite cohesive. It was written for like an animated movie that I've never seen. I've never been able to find. It doesn't really matter. It's just a really solid album. And also RIP to this singer. I have 3 bands on this list with dead singers. Yeah, I encourage everyone to check them out. Their guitarist is one of the most insane guitarists in the world.
All right. So next on my list is the band Sleep My Dear with the song Fi Ikusen no Kyoku. So I did not listen to Sleep My Dear for a long time. I'd never even heard of them, but this song came up in my YouTube recommended playlist, and instantly I was reminded why I like 90s VK.
Oh, so they're Japanese?
Yes, they are. Yeah. Sleep My Dear, I like quite a few of their songs, but especially this one. The guitars are cool, but it's really the chorus of the vocals that drives this song. The vocal line is very, very infectious. I love the drumming on this track, especially toward the middle. It's one of these bands that goes heavy, and then they pull back for the first part of the chorus. The drums kind of have this bossa nova thing going on, and then halfway through it slams back with a really heavy delivery by the vocalist and the guitarist. Not too much more to say about this one, but I highly encourage everybody, VK 90s fans, check this one out.
Sounds ridiculous.
It's great.
All right, I got the song We Owe This to Ourselves by Anne Berlin, American band. I think their first, fourth, fifth, and sixth albums are amazing. This comes off their 5th album, Dark is the Way, Light is a Place. I think this is their best album if I had to pick. Yeah, I remember the first time I heard them was like 01, and they had a guitar solo in their lead track. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, it's okay for you to play guitar solos in American music again. And great riffs, and their singer is just ridiculous. His range is unreal. He's also like 6'8", so he's a very imposing figure live. Yeah. But yeah, I highly recommend this album and this song.
All right. Yeah. Next for me is another German band. This is a German industrial electronica band called Enomine, and their song Mitternacht, which I first heard way back in the early 2000s when all my friends were listening to AMVs or watching AMVs.
Yeah.
I got recommended this one, which has a combination of Hellsing, Blood the Last Vampire, and Vampire Hunter D, Bloodlust. All of films I was a big fan of. This track in particular has an incredible, combination of orchestra and choir and this really interesting techno electronica beat going on. Some German narration throughout, but I loved everything about this track, especially the choir singing the chorus. A recurring theme. I like choirs. Who could have seen that coming?
You never hear a choir patch in our music.
Yeah, absolutely not. In fact, with our latest release, we actually, the one we're working on right now, we're trying to tone down the choirs. We'll see how that goes. But this is one of the big inspirations where I was like, oh, you can add choirs to anything. And so I do. Very, very big thanks to this song for introducing me to that.
So we'll take a little minute break here. So what I'll do is I'll pin in the comments this list of songs from both of us. Mm-hmm. I won't link to every song. You can just copy and paste the ones you're interested in listening to. Yeah. And I think almost all of these you'll be able to find on YouTube or streaming or any of the above.
Quite a few of these are major bands. Every now and then, like a few indies here and there.
Sure. But even the indie ones, I bet you can find, like Sleep My Dear, I bet you can find that.
Oh, yeah. I don't think any of these tracks are going to be impossible to find unless you're us with a vast history of internet at your fingertips.
That's right. Okay, we're hitting the last 2 of each. So right off the bat, well, not right off the bat, my second to last song on my shuffle is King Me by the band Lamb of God. This comes off their Resolution album. I'm only really familiar with Ashes of the Wake and then this Resolution album that came out 8 years later. I guess I've listened to some of the other ones. It's just these two like really grab me. Especially, I think this is their best album, Resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And this final track is a tad longer than most of their songs usually are. It's like 6-7 minutes. It has strings that pop in, which you're not expecting. There is some like spoken word Randy the singer does, but I'm normally not so keen on that. But it just works on this track, and it's Lamb of God. The riffs are great, and yeah, it's a really cool song. Check it out. Especially check this album out. The way it starts to finish, it flows.
Yeah. All right. Second to last for me, Raphael's song Arukisetsu no Chinkonka, which is out of all of Raphael's discography, I think this has my favorite guitar leads. And it's not just, like the lead of the song. There's like 2 or 3 different main riffs of this track. They just kind of flow from one to the other. I'm partial to actually a couple different versions of this track. I know there was the original from, I think, Mind Soap, but later when the band went back and re-recorded their entire discography, this song appeared on Ending. And they replaced the string intro with, I think it's Yuki on vocals doing like a choral piece. And it's all a cappella. It works incredibly well, but I do also really like the string intro that they used before. All the guitars of this track are just phenomenal. The leads are incredibly catchy. I could listen to this song all day. All the vocals, the vocal lines are also very, very catchy. Great track. One of the best of Raphael.
Nice. All right, my last song on this shuffle, You Don't Love Me Anymore by the band Toothpaste 2000 from their album Catch 22. Joel's got a confused look.
Not familiar.
I'll go a little longer on this one, but so I practiced at a practice space in Seattle back in 04, 05, and we had this room, and this band was practicing in the same unit. It's a husband and wife duo, and the wife was Donna, worked at the front desk as well. So one day I bought their album off them, and you don't expect albums to be good from like an indie band that you randomly run into. And I remember just playing it as I was in bed, falling asleep. And then I just kind of woke up, I wasn't asleep, but I was just like, wait a minute, this is really good. So they go by the band name Mas Rapido now, but this album, Catch 22, and their song You Don't Love Me Anymore is amazing. Their vocal harmonies, her guitar work, Frank plays bass, sings. Mm-hmm. They trade off vocals each song. Frank sings on this one. Highly recommend it. It's amazing. All right, Joel, what do you got for your last song?
So there's, like speaking of independent bands, there's this little known, up and coming band called New Skies with this new video. No. Everybody check out Visage. It's great. Love that song. But back to the main topic. So 90s, Yukiya's band Desire came out with an amazing album where, for me, my favorite track was called Voices. Voices from this album is one of my all-time favorite my all-time favorite drum patterns. You'll find it a lot in VK, but it's kind of this punk beat, very, very prevalent in this song. There's an area that kind of moves into double bass. The guitar work is fast and chaotic. But one of my favorite things about it, Yukiya usually sings about, like love lost and things like that. This one's more about like the world around and like waves of people and kind of feeling, like what people are thinking about you. And I think it's a very, very universal feeling. It's like, how do I appear to the waves of people around me? Do I get noticed? Like, are they laughing at me? How do they perceive me? Something about that really, really struck a chord with me in a way that, I like a lot of his lyrics. These, I think, are some of the best and some of the most interesting and very different from what he normally sings about. And so I was a big fan of this track. It has everything I love about 90s VK in it. Everything about it is just fantastic. Highly recommended.
Nice. All right. Like I said a little bit earlier, we will pin these lists in the comments for everyone to check out. Yeah, it's a good mix, like European metal. indie band from the Northwest.
Yeah.
No one's heard of. Well, actually, they do have. Yeah, they have quite a few albums, but and then Japanese bands that people have heard of, or maybe not have, as well as one Korean band. So, anyway, thanks for listening.